Hello and welcome. Actor Michael Keaton was forced to acquire a dynamic new range of skills when he signed on for the 1984 movie Touch and Go. In a way, that was nothing new for the wannabe-writer who worked as a TV cameraman and briefly became a stand-up comedian on his way to becoming an actor, which eventually included becoming the Dark Knight. Now, Touch and Go not only required him to learn to ice skate, but also to play ice hockey like a professional. However, after all his upskilling efforts in the movie, he and the cast, which included Maria Conchita Alonso and young Ajay Naidu, had to wait a frustrating 2 years for the film to get a release. Michael already had a number of hits to his name, including Mr. Mom, Nightshift and Johnny Dangerously, and of course he went on to films like Beetlejuice, Batman and Batman Returns, RoboCop, and more recently the Oscar-winning film Spotlight. But he explains in this phone chat we had shortly after Touch and Go's release just what happened behind the scenes on the movie, why it was delayed, and the tough schedule he went through to prep for the ice skating action.
Well, I must say first, I've loved all your work on screen here. A couple of the films haven't been released. Johnny Dangerously didn't get a cinema release out here in Australia, but Night Shift certainly got a release and did very well. Mr. Mum did pretty well, but I don't think it did proportionally as well as it did in the United States, I gather. And what's the next one that's come out here? Well, of course, we've renamed Gung Ho Working Class Man out here. Yeah. And that's been doing very good business.
Oh, it has?
Yep.
Oh, good.
And when I was in the States in June, and I met Bob Mandel, who, I'd met him the previous year on the set of FX in New York, because I'm a mate of Brian Brown's.
Yeah.
And I saw him again this year in June, and I went out to his house, actually, and we had a long chat, and he was telling me about Touch and Go. And then I went to KRG's, and they showed me about 20 minutes of a production reel of the film, because we knew then who had the film for Australia. And the Australian distributors finally showed me about... I guess it would have been 2 weeks ago, showed me the full film, and I like it very much. I'm amazed that the studio over there didn't release it earlier. What happened?
Well, apparently there were a lot of changes in the music, and there were changes in release dates because they couldn't make up their mind when to put it out. They wanted to pick the best time because it's obviously not a huge Christmas time movie or a summertime movie. You know, here they really pay attention to the seasons.
Sure.
It's a smallish picture, you know. So they couldn't find a spot for it. And in my opinion, they just waited. It could have been out a long time ago because it's getting fabulous reviews over here.
So I see. Yeah, they sent me a whole bunch of the reviews that came out in America. What do you think they had problems kind of pigeonholing it in a sense? You know, sort of saying, well, this is a comedy or romance or whatever.
I'll be honest with you. I think it's stupid studio thinking because they probably saw me and they thought, well, how can we market him comedically?
Mm.
And they should have never worried about that. They put it out as a nice little movie and then let people come see it.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to use me as a comedy star in it, and it's essentially a very light comedy with a lot of drama in it, you know?
Right.
So, you know, I don't know why they worry about that stuff so much.
When people have asked you about the film, how have you described it to them?
I tell them it's actually a love story between three people, you know, and it has some comedy in it, but it's essentially a love story, I think.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair, reasonable description of it too. Can I just go back a little bit before we talk about the movie specifically and a couple of the other ones that you've done, just to find out a little bit about your background. How did you get into the business? I gather you did a little bit of writing beforehand.
A little bit. I mean, I knew that I had dropped out of college. I'd been doing some plays in college, and I quit to try to pursue a career, you know. And then while I was working a lot of odd jobs, I was always writing and performing in local theaters. And then I just decided to move to Los Angeles and give it a go as an actor. And I figured even while I was waiting as an actor, I could keep writing. And if, you know, if worse came to worse, maybe if I was lucky, I could make a living as a writer also.
Mm.
And, I became more of an actor, you know, and I pursued that. And that's kind of what happened. And once I started doing some television shows, I got the night shift roles from Ron Howard.
Right.
Two of the writers from a television show. And they got me the audition. Well, they didn't give me the audition. They mentioned my name to Ron Howard. And then they finally gave it to me.
Right. Yeah, I love that film. I thought it was wonderful.
Thank you. I would think they would like that in Australia because people tend to be kind of outgoing and rowdy.
Yes, that's right.
Good, you know. I think it's good. I mean, I think I kind of like that image, you know, of, from what I understand, you know, a lot of people are out expressive, let's say.
Right.
This character is very expressive. Would like somebody who's a little roguish like that.
Yes. Spot on. What about the writing that you were doing? Was it, were you trying to write sort of television series or movie scripts or what?
Yeah, I'm trying to write mostly television scripts, and but you know, not really working that hard at it because I essentially wanted to be an actor, you know. And but I actually am thinking of maybe writing a movie for myself somewhere down the road.
Have you done any, or have you done any stand-up comedy work at all?
Yeah, I worked for about 3 years as a stand-up also.
Oh, right, because I think, you know, that kind of experience seems to show up in your work.
Yeah. I think I use the best of stand-up in, you know, most stand-ups don't, but I like to think that I use what I learned in stand-up in my work when I do comedy, you know.
Right. How did you get into, if you were, you know, doing plays and everything and then writing, how did you break into the stand-up work? I presume that was in Los Angeles and probably around the clubs.
Well, I used to work in New York a little, and then I just started writing some material and showing up late at night in these clubs and working out, and eventually the owner started putting me on more and more prime time. And then I really there was about a 6-month period there where I just jumped ahead. I made big leaps, you know, and got a lot of confidence and started to go out and work a little bit.
When you're starting out, I've often wondered, when you're starting out in those clubs, is it a real sort of live or die situation? I mean, does the audience sort of cut you off if you're pretty bad?
Yeah, usually, or if you're new, you know, it's late at night and you're out there with a lot of competition. It's really pretty dismal to tell you the truth. Once I made the leap over into getting better time slots and, you know, working in a little bit better room, then I never seemed to go back. I just kind of moved forward, fortunately, and it got a little bit better. But that's a very strange lifestyle, you know. You wake up at about 1, and in the afternoon, you know, you work at night. I'm kind of back on that now, so I feel like a vampire. You know, the rest of the world is living a life, and I'm, you know, just getting up from work.
Right. Was there one particular turning point for you, either in the stand-up work or anything else, that really sort of kicked you on?
I think night shift was the biggest thing that, you know, and then Mr. Mom made me legitimate because we're very cautious here in the States, you know, because it costs so much money to make a movie. I guess they don't want to take too many risks. So the jump from night shift, where I was a second, you know, I was really the second guy. I wasn't the star.
Yeah.
The jump from that to Mr. Mom, where I carried the movie, where I starred in it, was a big jump because then that proved that I could handle the entire movie. You know, they worry about things like that. It was the difference between playing the funny friend or the leading man.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about Touch and Go, because obviously you've got to get out. Bob said that you did an enormous amount of work preparing for the role physically.
Yeah. I got into shape and I worked out with hockey players, and I learned to play hockey, actually. And I was exhausted all the time, constantly. I changed my diet and I just worked out real hard. And I also worked on my character a lot. You know, I tried to get an athlete mentality, or a spoiled athlete mentality.
Right.
All the way around, it was real hard work that I did, but I think it paid off.
How had you skated and played hockey before?
No, never. I learned for the movie, and I ended up doing, you know, like 85% of the stuff myself.
Oh, really? So, what sort of training schedule did you get yourself into?
Oh, it was everything. You know, I was getting up at like ridiculous. I was either skating at night until past midnight, or getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go out on the ice, and or maybe that 5 o'clock in the morning to go out on the ice and skate, and then lift weights, and then go to rehearsal for the movie.
Mm.
You ate all of your dinner? Attaboy.
Is that yours, is it?
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's 3.5.
All right.
He's currently dressed up like Superman right now.
I understand. I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old here. Or just turned 6, actually.
Yeah.
How many kids have you got?
He's my only one.
All right. Oh, that's great.
So Touch and Go is doing nice business. Not anything huge, but it's doing nice business. But critically, it's a nice success.
Mm.
People in Australia have been so nice to me, in my movies, that I hope this one works.
Well, I don't know whether anybody mentioned it to you when you got the message we were going to call, but I told Katie we're doing a big special preview. We're inviting about 600 readers of my paper along to see the film.
Oh, great.
As part of a promotion to launch the film here in Sydney.
Uh-huh. When is that going to be?
That's going to be next... it's going to be on about the 13th of October, I think.
That's terrific. I appreciate that. That's great.
Oh,
I think it's going to start opening here across the country pretty soon. It's only been open in the western part of the country. Now it's going to open up in... I don't know if you're familiar with these two reviewers, Siskel and Ebert.
I am. I know Roger Ebert, actually.
Yeah, they've become kind of celebrities, and they've both given it a thumbs up, so I think that'll help the film along a little bit.
Oh, terrific, because they're no longer... They've shifted, haven't they, off their original
I think so, yeah.
channel.
Yeah, they're somewhere else now.
Right. So just tell me a little bit more about developing the... I mean, obviously there's two sides to the character in Touch and Go. I mean, there's the human side and the sporting side, if you like. Did you have much to go on in terms of sort of attitudes of athletes who have become fairly, how can I put it, worldly and sort of enjoying their success?
Yeah, they become, athletes get sheltered, I think, and become pampered, at least they do here, because they have to, they just get pampered because they're like racehorses or something sometimes.
Mm.
And once you become successful and make, you get, it's kind of, this story is actually about a guy who grows up because they're put in a position where they really don't have to grow up.
Mm.
Everything's done for them by coaches or managers or, it kind of has to be that way. But then when they get out in the real world, a lot of times they're very lost. And the nice thing about this is this is a guy who's coming to terms with actually maturing, and giving himself up and not being so self-centered all the time.
Right.
And that was the biggest, mostly what I do in this movie is contain myself a little and play it legitimately as I think as I can, considering what this character is, who is basically like in a lot of ways, very sophisticated, in other ways, like a spoiled boy.
Mm.
And then what the hard part in that was to try and still keep humor, because if you don't have humor about him, you probably don't like the guy. But see, I didn't think at the beginning you should necessarily love him. I just thought you should look at him and say, well, this guy's got a lot to learn.
Mm.
And the woman forced him into that situation. And that's kind of how I think that worked.
Yeah, right. The kid's very good in it.
That's his first movie, yeah. He's wonderful. I think the whole cast is. If I don't hope I'm not rude, but that buzzing you're hearing is probably my driver calling me.
Oh, right. Okay. Just very quickly then, a couple of questions. Just tell me a little bit about the kid. I mean, what was he like in real life? Was he...
We got to be terrific friends, and in fact, he's coming to New York to visit me. I mean, he's going to work here, and then we're going to get together in a week or so.
All right. And when you say to work, you mean to do another movie, or...
I think he's doing another movie or a television show or something here.
Right. Has he got that street sort of quality that he delivers in the film?
Oh, yeah, he's very sharp, but he's a very bright kid, and I think talented.
The film you're doing now is what? It's called
Skip Tracer, and it's about the New York lotto system and a big scam. It's actually a thriller comedy.
Who else is in it?
Ray Don Chong.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, Michael, look, thank you very much for all of that and your time, and all the very best. Cheers.
Michael is still a very busy actor at the age of 72. He reprises his role as Batman in 2 superhero films later this year, The Flash and Batgirl, opposite the young actress and singer Leslie Grace in the title role.